Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And with this one, I'm going to be giving you my update for Shadowlands patch 9.1, my healer tier list for PvP, which healers are looking good, which ones are coming out on top, which ones are going to be versatile and flexible and give you options to play. I'm going to be talking about kind of their play styles as well. So if you're interested in picking one for fun or not just competitive viability, then that information is also going to be provided to you in this video. So let's just get started. We've broken down this tier list into meta, solid, limited, below average, and play at your own risk. Meta means that this healer is incredibly desirable. You're going to have an easy time finding groups in LFG. Solid means that it's a flexible healer, versatile, but not necessarily the first pick, although there's a lot of desperate DPS that basically if you're playing any healer will pick you up, and I do actually recommend playing a healer if you're struggling to find teammates or to find games. And then limited, which means that you could be the best composition in the game with this healer, but you're only going to really play that composition to be successful, and you're not going to have many other options. So if you're pugging in LFG, you may struggle with this healer if you select it, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad healer. It may have a powerful comp, but you'll be restricted. Below average means that you don't have a real specific comp. You don't have an identity. You're likely unpopular because of this, and you might have to worry about it, but you could try to make it work if you want. The play at your own risk category is then I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to you. If you're really hipster underdog lifestyle, then you could go all the way you want with it. But that's what that tier is going to mean for me on this list. Now looking at the healers themselves, we've got Discipline Priest coming up number 1. This is an aggressive damage dealing healer. So if you want to play aggressive compositions like Rogue Mage Priest and Feral Hunter Priest, you will do very well in those compositions. However, outside of that scope, you do not have a ton of options. I'm not seeing Discipline Priests running with spellcasters or in a ton of melee cleaves at the moment where it wouldn't otherwise be replaceable. So for me, while it actually has access to the best composition in the game, the Rogue Mage composition, I think then it is limited if you're a pugging player where you want to just play with whatever's available. You may start to struggle. You're going to have a lot of fun in 2v2 dealing damage to heal. You'll have fun in Battlegrounds doing damage to heal. And if aggression sounds good to you, then this is a great healer to pick up, but it's lacking a little bit of the flexibility and versatility in its options. So for me, it comes into the limited tier. Now, looking at Holy Paladin, this is a more flexible and versatile healer. It comes in with one major weakness, and that's going to be your mana regeneration. You can be dampened, and teams can kind of block your attacks and try and attrition you on Holy Paladin. However, at lower ranks, where attrition is generally not a gameplay choice, if you're just starting PvP, it's a phenomenal healer because you just have incredibly powerful cooldowns that most things cannot kill through, with Avenging Wrath accessible through talents like Awakening, having immunity ultimate sacrifice, having just bubble immunity, blessing protection immunities. These are great cooldowns to stop a lot of the burst damage that's available. So at low ratings, you're going to have a much better time on this healer to try and survive through the big cooldown windows so long as you're using them. You will be flexible. You can run Rogue Mage, again, one of the best, maybe the best composition in the game at the moment. Warrior Mage, which is another great, amazing composition, definitely for Paladin. Enhancement Shaman Warrior, these are like your best compositions you could possibly run, and you can just flex out and play with whatever you want as a Holy Paladin. You can play with Demonology Warlocks if you really wanted to, and you can play double caster and double melee and caster melee, and you'll be flexible in that regard. But I wouldn't say that you're necessarily the meta healer, and again, that's because of the downfall of the mana, and this is more so on ladder. In tournaments, we still see a lot of it. I think teams have invested a lot of time into their Paladins, but we do see Druids starting to take reign a little bit more so in the tournament specifically. It's really the healers that only play Paladin that are still playing them. The other healers that could switch have switched, but we do see them in tournaments, which is why they're apparently still good. But I wouldn't necessarily say that they're the meta healer everybody's trying to go after. But they're a great pug healer. You're going to struggle a bit in 2v2 again because of your mana problems. Battlegrounds struggle probably again because of your mana problems. But in 3v3 with those competitive comps that I talked about, you'll have a great time and you'll be flexible and versatile in those options as well. And it fits between a healer and a damage dealer. You're not all in like the Discipline Priest is towards damage. Holy Priest, this healer looked insane when Shadowlands was coming out with talents who fly up in the air, big pair of mendings. Thought it was going to be amazing. The tuning wasn't there. It just kind of fell over like a wet noodle. But now in patch 9.1, after a lot of changes over these months, I would say that it's looking a lot better. It's directly competing with Discipline in its main compositions, the Rogue Mage and the Jungle Cleave. And this is mostly because you have a ranged stun through Chastise. So you can lock a target down, move into range, chain it into a Psychic Scream, and provide immediate crowd control to your team, especially in those burst compositions, which is incredibly desirable. A main advantage of the Holy Priest or the Discipline Priest is mana regeneration, as well as the ability to play with other classes. You're not just limited to Rogue Mage, you're not just limited to Jungle. However, it's not as aggressive. You're not doing a truckload of damage. You do good burst with Mind Games and Holy Fire, but with Discipline, you are constantly machine gunning damage out. If you don't want to do that, you can go over to Holy, which is going to be a little bit more healing focused, but has those windows of burst, good stun crowd control for coordination, and you're going to be in a great position. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily the meta healer. Everybody's looking for Holy Priest. Maybe it could be if it was more popular. That might actually be the main reason for it being held back. The other one I think is that it can be susceptible to being attacked a lot. So at lower ratings, you might have a little bit of trouble surviving on this healer. If there's a lot of melee cleaves just constantly running you down, that might be your main drawback. It's a decent healer in 2v2. It's excellent in Battlegrounds. But I would say it's definitely solid at the moment because it's versatile and it has access to some of the best compositions in the game. Definitely a good pickup at the moment. Mistweaver, this is another healer that's kind of just been just left to hang a little bit. It got a bunch of new honor talents to try and shore up some of its weaknesses, which it has. Being able to port away when you're stunned, preventing yourself from dying in stuns, mana regeneration buffs so that you can play more of a late game oriented play style. The main problem is that you have no identity as a Mistweaver monk. To me, Mistweaver monk was always the punch monk that just ran in and tried to beat people up while healing at the same time with Eminence. A new legendary coming in is trying to achieve that, but I think it's too much risk per reward, at least in PvP, to try and make that Eminence build work for it. And it doesn't have any identity now that Way of the Crane was removed as a PvP talent, which would just boost your physical damage, make you immune to roots so that you could run in there and get a lot of damage done. And because of this, you don't have these compositions where it's like, these comps really love having Mistweavers, so you're always just competing with druids or priests or shamans, and it's usually comes down to how much mana do you have, how easily do you survive, can you play deep dampening games in PvP. It's a much slower healer because of that, and you're not really going to get too excited about when you're playing it. It's pretty straightforward, just sit in the back and banana beam, much like Mercy does in Overwatch. So for me, it's definitely better than it has been. I think that you could pull it off if you really wanted to. I don't think it's a play at your own risk. You could pull it off. It's great in Battlegrounds, not so good in 2v2. Again, because you don't really add damage. It's a main drawback for it. But its mana is in a much better spot. It's a very straightforward healer and basic healer, so if you want to pick it up for those reasons, you can definitely make it work. Its niche is countering damage over time effects, which is not very prevalent at the moment. Affliction Warlock just got buffed, so maybe into the future we see it. You might maybe take the long investment, play the long con with Mistweaver and be like, you know what, it's going to get buffed again and again and again and again, and then you know what, I put all the time into it. Maybe you want to try and play the long con with Mistweaver, but at the moment I would say that it is likely still below average comparatively to the rest of the healers available. Now, Protection Paladin, again, a lot of people are probably thinking, why was that icon even there in the first place? But Protection Paladin is certainly a healer. It's going to be a little bit more limited than it has been in the past. I remember in the last patch, it was playing Fire Mages and Warriors randomly. To me, Prop Paladin is kind of an all-in healer. So if you want to run with Windwalkers and Death Knights and maybe even Rep Paladins, just melee cleave, think of just this cluster ball of melee, and you run the Ashen Hollow build, the Venthyr Protection Paladin, and you just run in like a big ball with melee DPS and just all in people. That's where the Protection Paladin is going to fit at the moment for me, which makes it limited, but it's definitely powerful in that. So if you're looking just for quick games, just get in there, smash some stuff out. Maybe you're a Prop Paladin from Raid or something, looking for something to do in PvP. That's where you'll succeed. In 2v2, you're actually insane. Play with BM Hunters, you will absolutely rampage 2v2. I definitely would suggest it. You're going to win any 1v1 pretty much in the game, just because you have infinite sustain, take basically no damage. Great dueling spec, but for that regard, probably not going to see it too much in Battlegrounds because it doesn't have that much mobility. There's other healers that have better AoE healing, so it falls off in Battlegrounds, at least rated Battlegrounds, but again, dueling, you might have a great time with it. And just really just think of this aggressive all-in healer. and you could make it work. I've seen a lot of like Convoke the Spirits boomkins with prop paladins where they toss out the Guardian Angels so the boomkin's immune to CC, and then they Convoke the Spirits and completely smash the whole team with Ashen Hollow. That sounds fun. You can put it in there and you can run along with it there. Resto Druid, this healer is absolutely great at the moment. Great output, great cooldown counters for cooldown trades. It has a bit of a mana problem, but you fix that by drinking. And because you have cat farm and stealth, you can just sneak away, go into stealth and drink and regenerate your mana. It's a great pickup healer, just straightforward. Has the option to flex between offense and defense by going in for incapacitating clones or bash clones, having entangling roots to run with double spellcasters. I've been having a really good time on my Restoration Druid. We're seeing it a lot more in tournaments. You can run burst setups, you can run cleave setups, you can run caster cleave setups. You're usually the best healer in a lot of those different compositions. You're incredibly desirable, great in 2v2, great in battlegrounds. You have the option to run some meme stuff if you want to. I've seen some Night Fae Resto Druids with Convoke the Spirits, blasting out a lot of damage in 2v2 if that sounds fun, or just go Necrolord for the standard build of Resto Druid. That's obviously a perfectly viable option as well, but Resto Druid is definitely meta at the moment. Everybody wants to be a tree. Now we look at the Restoration Shaman. The Restoration Shaman is phenomenal in this patch. You're a little bit more limited than the Resto Druid, but in my mind, you have a couple of options I've seen so far, which is kind of Shadow Priest Rogue Shaman or Warrior Shadow Priest Shaman. So Shadow Priest Shaman is generally a really good combo if you're a Restoration Shaman, and then pick up almost any class in that third slot, and you will be doing very well. You can run melee cleaves and play all in, much like the prop paladin. So Ret Warrior comps or Demon Hunter Death Knights, you're really good in those. You start falling off a bit, or at least I don't see them as frequently with 2 spellcasters. So if you've got a lot of Warlock friends and Mage friends, you might not want to play the Restoration Shaman, whereas the Druid has the option to do that. But if you want Purge, you want Aggression, and you want to run this Earthquake Elemental Legendary, where you summon in the Earth Elemental, and for a minute they're just doing as much damage as a Ret Paladin, you will smash teams, and you actually work to be sort of a soft counter to Restoration Druid in that regard. So this is a great kind of counter meta pick where everyone's playing Druid. You pick up Shaman, you spam Purge with these Earth Elementals and all in them, and you can try and counter them in that regard, which is why I think that it bumps it up to meta at the moment for me on this tier list. So we've got Resto Druid, Resto Shaman in my mind, currently the meta healers, the top of the crop. No jarring or weakness that pops out to mind, and they're flexible in their options. Solid healers for Holy Paladin and Holy Priest, just versatile, straightforward healers. They both have one major weakness: mana for Paladin, survivability for Holy Priest. Limited healers being Disciplined Priest, just your aggression. You only have aggressive comps as a choice. Mana is a bit of a weakness as well. And then Protection Paladin, again, running those all-in big cluster melee cleave balls are pretty much going to be the only comps that you're going to be running with the prop Paladin. Unless you see Drainer do something with it, which maybe we do. And then Mistweaver, again, it looks like they're in an awful position because they're like 3 ranks below the Druid, but they've got really good mana, really good healing output. They are a lot better than they were. If it was before this patch, I would have put it in play at your own risk. Like, don't even look at it. But for me, the main reason that it falls short is because it doesn't have that niche. I'm not thinking of a comp where I'm like, wow, the Mistweaver is really suited for that. It accomplishes something and it's countering something, and it fits in that regard. It's just kind of very basic and bare bones at the moment. So it falls a little bit below average, but that might then be a great pickup for you if you're new to healing and you want something that's more basic and straightforward. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave it with a thumbs up. Comment down below with your thoughts. What healer are you looking to pick up? What have you been experiencing on your healer? Do you think that I'm totally off base with my assessment here? Other than that, subscribe to the channel. Absolutely free. Just lets you know when my videos go live. I would greatly appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. I'm trying my hardest to live the dream of eventually getting to the 100K subscriber goal. I know we're still pretty far away from that, but that's definitely kind of one of my bucket list goals. So it would help me out a lot, and it's absolutely free to just hit the subscribe button. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've said other than that a lot of times if you want to come up with some sort of game around me saying other than that. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.